Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers, and I'm your host, Dorothy Odell. Tonight's sponsors of our show are Dr. Joseph DeTore with his book, Secrets in Depth. This book is filled with rich and detailed information on this gripping military factual thriller that shows the depth of darkness acquired after 3 decades of service. Get your copy today on either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. As well, we still have our 6-month Freedom Boat Club membership. Sorry, I don't know why that was hard to say tonight, but our 6-month Freedom Boat Club membership with Camaraderie Rescue Mission, with access to over 350 locations. Purchase your t-shirt, get your raffle ticket for $100, worth over $7,500 value. Get your tickets today at www.tcrmi.org/shop. It's a great way to take your clients out on the water. And so with that, I am super excited tonight to bring to the stage Dr. Sandy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've just been getting to know Dr. Sandy in the green room for a little bit, and she's an absolutely delightful person. So we have an amazing evening in store for sure. So just tell our viewing audience a little bit about you, and then we'll go into the rest of your story.
Well, there's just so many layers to an onion. The outer layer will get...
Funny you said that. I say that about healing. Healing is like an onion. You peel it layer to layer. So that's awesome that you start off that way.
And this has been my journey to healing.
Awesome.
So my whole story. Starting out as 16 years old, my mom left. We were homeless most of the time I was growing up. Okay. Just to give you a little background about myself. My mom left me when I was 16. I was working 3 jobs in order to get by. One of those jobs was working as a nurse's aide assistant helper. And that is what opened my eyes up to how caring for others gave me a little piece of my heart. Mm-hmm. So as time went on, 19 years old, I got certified, and, I just climbed the chain, the ladder of nursing from, the nurse's aide helper to CNA, and then ER tech for a total combination of 15 years. And then while I was going to nursing school, LPN for 4 years, RN since 2010, achieved my master's in 2017, 19. I worked on my doctoral project, which is preventing patient on nurse violence through education. Received my doctorate in 2019, and meanwhile working on Nurses Against Violence, which is reaching 5 years, October 9th. So I went back and got my psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So here I am.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on getting that. And, sorry, life threw you so many lemons at first, but here you are making lemonade out of all of that and empowering other nurses to do the same. So congratulations on that. And so can you tell us a little bit about how Nurses Against Violence unite? Because this is definitely a powerful story as well. So I just want to make sure that our audience is ready for this, because I know that this is something that the world needs to hear. So tell us about that.
So Nurses Against Violence started because of growing up in nursing myself. I've seen how it's changed throughout dramatically, especially when 2008 came about, and then, the recession with the housing bubble. I started seeing a lot more people went from, you would have an occasional person coming, in a demented patient that would get really upset, and then they would throw something. And it got to the point where I was starting to see people coming in, trying to get their next fix. I would see the attitudes of nurses saying, or things that would say, not necessarily attitudes, that, oh, here's Mr. Smith again, and he's coming in. And so therefore, what ends up happening is that the patient is now viewed as a frequent flyer, and that's where I started really noticing how it was becoming a problem, where nurses were starting to get punched in the face. People weren't talking about it. And when in 2017, after I finished my master's program, and I was like, I'm going to make something different. I'm not going to talk about wound care. I'm going to talk about the culture of nursing and how toxic it is, starting from the education piece. We barely even talk about in education on the frameworks for Florida itself, barely even talk about mental health, acute mental health, and addiction. So therefore, we have a whole nursing staff. When I'm given this bare bones thing where I'm supposed to be able to make a curriculum from, it's telling me that mental health is not important. So therefore, if I have a specialty in mother and baby, guess what my specialty is going to be in? Mother and baby. I'm not going to really talk about mental wellness or mental health because it's not even a part of the curriculum. So it's considered as a specialty, but yet it's considered, we don't just hand out meds or do physical assessments and say, take your pills and be quiet. The person has emotions, the person has feelings. So therefore, we're supposed to be taking care of 100% of the patient. This is often disregarded when it comes to nursing education and even in healthcare, period. So when we have a hurting society coming in that's hurting over, hurting, what ends up happening is that they take it out on the nursing staff, and then so therefore it can be reciprocated. Can be, not all the time. So when I'm seeing these changes happening with the housing bubble and the addiction rising, and working in corrections and seeing how nurses are manipulated to getting their next fix, but yet there's no protocol in place for people that are addicted. Right. Nor is there any kind of protocol to help with people that are, even though somebody looks fine on the outside, they might be hurting on the inside and might explode because you're not recognizing they might be having some form of anxiety, which is one of the largest mental health issues that for somebody that has the fear of the unknown coming into the hospital. So Nurses Against Violence was created because we wanted to fill the gaps of education, to bring awareness to the issues, to fill the gaps of education and empower nursing, all of nursing and healthcare workers to understand that mental health is not just a specialization, that is a part of all of us, and to stop stigmatizing it. Because if we can stop the stigmatizing, then we will start to be able to take care of 100% of our patients and therefore eliminate the violence in healthcare.
I love that. And, as you're sharing your story, I don't know why I've never thought of this before, but my mom was I guess you would call it, she wasn't a nurse. She didn't actually go for her full nursing, but she worked at a nursing home, and the elderly were like abusive. Like this guy, his dentures, decided to bite her, and his dentures actually stuck to her boob because that's where he was going for. And that was back then. That was back before I was even born, and I'm 46. So this stuff has been happening, but no one, like you said, talks about it because, back then you just shut up because you needed your job type thing and you suck it up. Right. And so, wow, now that you're saying that, I was just like, this has been going on a lot longer than anybody's expected. And now we're just doing something about it. And wow, that's incredible.
The biggest thing for me was to make sure that, because I had a lot of coworkers, a lot of people that were scared to talk about these things. So the first leg of my project was anonymous reporting. So I had decided on what my project was going to be, and we developed a black box, and you would put tickets in there. It could be totally anonymous. It could be anybody reporting it, right? We have no idea. Right. So this happened. So, and if you didn't want to report it, then you put, no, I didn't want to make a full on report. That means you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of workers' compensation, and that you didn't want to deal with any of the other stuff. You just wanted to report that there was a violent incident and to watch out for this room and to find other techniques to make. When we implemented it, we had one person that reported, and then it went up 900% the next week of how many tickets that we had put in there. We were about to implement it to all of the hospital. The ER was jumping on board, ortho, all of these. Well, right before this happened, I was like, right before this happened, we were let go from my project.
Oh.
So I had to find another preceptor that would take me. So I had one in Orlando that was a psychologist, and I had one that was a psych nurse practitioner, or F&P, which is a family nurse practitioner that was working at an addiction center in Orlando. So I had to juggle between Orlando and Tampa, which is 2 hours apart. And also to Tampa is like an additional 50 minutes. So therefore, I'm going all up, across Florida in order to be able to make sure that my clinical rotation's done, because the hospital kicked me out.
Wow. Well, and they kicked you out because they didn't want you to make waves.
Right. So I found that the tickets, when people would report it. So I was wondering, going back to my master's project, we worked on a program that was a de-escalation. So my whole thing is, if you look at the definition, I'm just digressing a little bit. If you look at the definition of de-escalation, that's meeting the person in the middle when they're already upset. Whatever happened to prevention, right? Mm-hmm. So that is where my program, I have the first violence prevention program for nursing and healthcare, to be able to understand and recognize the symptoms of acute mental illness, and to work on not only with them, but also with ourselves, and to recognize that we are not perfect either, right? And we need to get help as well. Right. So, did you ever have those things where you're just like, okay, so what ended up happening was, what was my point? I'm so sorry.
No, that's
excited about this, all this stuff. So when we have my master's program, I took this de-escalation program and we made it fun, where we dressed them up and they were able to act out, and they were able to like get out there, that person that sticks in their head, they were able to act it out. And then the other person was supposed to be able to, not only they're laughing, trying to do it, but they were trying to keep a straight face too, in order to work through that moment to make it better. Right. So it was not only cathartic for the nurses, they went from stoic face to laughing and having a great time. And so this is something that I brought when I was doing that with my preceptor at the time for my master's project before my doctoral degree. Was doing like these little ticks on a piece of paper, like how many code grays were there on unit 9, blah, 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 blah. There's a total of 20 on her paper. I'm like, there's no way there's only 20 in the whole hospital for 3 months. Sorry, doesn't happen that way. So that's where in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so something's wrong. If we're having to do de-escalation programs and we're not recognizing that there needs to be prevention, then this needs to be my project. So that was my first leg with the anonymous reporting, how effective it would be to be able to call each other out on the things in a nice way, to be able to get things better for the future. And not only that, for also to have increased safety for the unit, and for, of course, our patients.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And exactly, okay, so in dealing with, because you're friends with Dr. J, so that's why I instantly went to the veteran world for a second in my head, because I've been I have been surrounding myself with veterans, and our thing in right there, what I'm trying to get is prevention, like before they even leave the military, to have that prevention. So exactly, like every workplace should have prevention against these measures. I mean, that's why we have sexual harassment policies and other policies. It's the prevention of that. So why, not that a policy is going to prevent anybody from doing what, if they really want to do it, but what I'm saying is, getting to that place and educating before it becomes a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And because you said your program has been almost be 5 years, right? And you're just basically touching the surface now of the education and getting the word out there to help these nurses. So we could do a lot better, guys, on getting this out there to the public, and helping our nursing staff so that they're not in a hostile work environment.
Right. And and the things that we're internalizing, we're indirectly bringing it home. We're indirectly giving it to our patients. So it's like the circle of violence. And it's like, no matter how hard, you're changed forever. until even after you get therapy. It's like a constant. So I, from the very beginning, when Nurses Against Violence was created, I started the workplace violence support group, where people would come in and they would discuss. Now things have gotten to the point where people are so overwhelmed. Now they're not really telling me about things that are happening. I was holding webinars and stuff like that. And I will probably more than likely get back to that. But right now it's very triggering for a lot of people. And, how about the suicide rate with nurses? Have we even thought about that? Like the suicide rate, I have something here. 1 in 18 American nurses experience suicidal ideation within a year. These results are supported by the more recent survey conducted by the American Medical Association between April and December of 2020. Post-COVID,
Wow.
what are those statistics now? We have nurses ramming through intersections. We have nurses being found in their cars. We're not, I'm like, got chills. I got goosebumps right now thinking about the nurses that are hurting themselves, drinking and drugging and trying to forget. But yet when somebody comes and talks about their trauma, they're quick to judge, right? Because they're afraid to face what they're facing. There's no protections for nurses. There's no legislation passed. There's more protection for police officers and military, which nurses don't even have protection when it comes to mental health care. There's nothing in place for if somebody punches you in the face, that if your jaw is broken, I'm going to digress just here for a second. I found over 15 levels of victimization just for reporting violence that happens to you while you're on the job, where they're telling you that you need to, if you're going to file charges, which they encourage you not to do, that you need to do it off the clock. And if you're out of work, that PTO time that you've been saving to take, like most of the nurses, I don't have statistics, I'm just using this as an observation. Most nurses, there's a lot of nurses, male and female or non-binary, that have children that are single, and they're banking this time in order to be able to use it to go do something fun with their family. Mm-hmm. And they're getting that taken away from them. So we'll say if 40 hours is banked, how many hours is a work week? Roughly about 37 and a half for nurses. So that's 1 week. Now, say for instance, just throwing this out there, disability for workman's compensation, and forgive me if I'm off with this, but it doesn't start until at least a month after the incident. So if you have 1 week and then you have 3 weeks with no pay, and then you're only getting 62% of your pay and you have mouths to feed, what do you think is going to end up happening to that nurse that was injured, both mentally and physically, on top of the other people that have witnessed an injury, which is also secondary trauma? What do you think is happening to that nurse in their mind?
She's going nuts.
She's going to go back to work, or he's going to go back to work.
Yeah. But
they can't afford to be out. There's no protection.
All right.
Yeah. So we have a real broken system that's affecting, and they think that nursing and nurses and all healthcare workers, especially nursing, have this shield, this invisible shield, that they are going to always be okay because they are taught coping mechanisms and they're taught therapeutic measures to be able to take care of themselves. But yet the one that does know is sometimes the one that, on the flip side, the one that does know doesn't go and get help.
Right. Wow. I've heard a lot of different stories lately, especially because we're an advocate here for like PTSD and helping people. The veteran suicide rate's up to 44 a day, and now 1 in 8 nurses, you say, are having at least
1 in 18 nurses.
1 in 18 weeks. Yeah.
And that's only what we've counted.
Yeah. And that's before COVID. Mm-hmm. And then since COVID, because they've had to work longer shifts, mm-hmm. they've seen what they've seen. Well, I'm speaking from experience here. I know I'm from Canada, so a different country from where Dr. Sandy is, but I'm sure it's the same thing, where the nurses were overworked. I mean, they had to work around the clock because, especially shorthanded, And then with the whole, well, if you didn't get vaccinated, you were out of a job. So our nursing staff went to half, still have the same bullshit problems. No one was taking care of them. So now, because they're so full of PTSD, they're just going to go take a job somewhere else because they don't want to see that around again.
Nope.
So, wow.
And they're not appreciated, and actually I do have a nurse friend that is up in Canada that has been battling with her own battles because she was advocating for her mother and for her mother, and she was basically put across the board of nursing because of the fact that she was advocating for her mother, that they were not taking care of her mom correctly. And you should be able to say something. If something's not right, you should be able to say something without retribution. Well, that's all that happens out there is retribution. That's why I decided that I was going to keep going with my education so I could work on my own, and that I didn't need to have an employer, that I could employ myself, because things need to be said.
Right. And that's why you're here.
That's why.
And I love that, because I mean, we're not shit disturbers or stir the pot, but we want people to know that this stuff happens out there. And that's why we have people like Dr. Sandy on our show. And that's why we had, his name is Dan Morrow on talking about abortions. And he wrote a book about a family member that could potentially have had an abortion versus not. And we have these conversations on here to bring awareness, to bring light, and to everybody has a say in anything, really. So just bringing a different light to things. So thank you for coming on today. This has been awesome and great. And you're so full of passion, because I mean, before we even started, like, Dr. Sandy was just like, what can I say? I'm like, anything.
I think it's important that we also know that whatever we've experienced in our lives, in our personal lives, comes out into how we look at things in our past, and how our future should be, right? Like, I had that feeling of abandonment. Well, what is nursing having? Feelings of abandonment. So all of these different things, and it's like, okay, well, I could say something. I could do whatever I can do, because I'm not going to let somebody else feel abandoned, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what it's all about. And to bring in, and what about the patients? The patients feel abandoned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and not to, because I know you said that with all the addictions that are going on right now, and that's why we're having the workplace violence increased, but we should still be able to take ownership of our actions. So if, okay, I'm drunk one night and I get into a fist fight and I ended up punching the nurse that was taking care of me, there still should be retribution about that.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh, sorry, you're just having a bad night getting drunk because somebody, but no, I mean, and really, what is that? And I don't know what it's like where you're from, but where I'm from, oh, hell yeah. Like, since COVID hit, we were losing 15 a day to suicide overdoses. So, and I've heard from different people that the EMS are just sick of it. So mm-hmm. They would take their time getting there. And so is that right? No, but how many times are you going to watch the same guy try and kill himself on the street? Right. So it's not if it's a right or wrong issue. This is what's happening. And it's because our EMS are like struggling with their own PTSD because of seeing what's out there. And then you have the people that are so hurt and in pain and hopeless that they try and take their life, or get drunk and decide to be disorderly. And not to say that it's right, but it exists. So what do we do now? It's like you said, the vicious circle.
Mm-hmm. And then, the whole thing of feeling helpless. Like, the learned helplessness is real. Like, trying to do something that you're trying to do something good for your patient, trying to, be a better person, but you don't have the tools. Look at the doctor that died from wearing trash bags, and not from the trash bags, but with COVID, trying to make sure that he had enough PPE. People were resorting, even in Canada, doing whatever that they could to protect themselves because we were told to wear bandanas or we were told to wear flimsy little masks because they didn't have any because they weren't even prepared in the first place. These community loving hospitals, they say that they love their patients, but they sure did the opposite direction when it came to the pandemic acts for the United States. They actually are legislation that they're supposed to stockpile. They were given money. Well, where did that money go to? It went to bonuses. It went to everything but preparing for the pandemic. This is stemming all the way back from smallpox. It's called the Pandemic Acts. It's definitely fine. You can definitely find it. It's there. And that's what the hospitals have failed. And this happened in Canada too. I saw trash bags being worn. They were using the white Glad bags. They weren't using the black ones. Like we were trying to really get covered up. But they were reusing masks, putting them in. People were using somebody else's mask. That's disgusting.
Mm.
Like I have pictures of dirty masks with initials on them that they were told, and they were using chemicals to try to clean them. But it turns out that it's like you're actually putting somebody else's face mask on your face. And if it is clean or somewhat clean, you're inhaling chemicals and you're getting sick from the chemicals. So let's talk about workman's compensation again, shall we? They don't even recognize PTSD for nurses. If they go out for PTSD, they don't even recognize it. It's not even a thing.
Wow. Well, we were told to hang them from the dashboard and that the sunlight would come through and it would sanitize is what some of the bullshit I've heard. Oh, I've heard it all. Pretty much. Trust me.
And what's even more asinine is that, and I understand vaccinations are important. I get it. I'm not trying to stomp on anybody's feet about that. I'm vaccinated. But when you have people that didn't even have the vaccine, that jumped in and was saving lives, trying to save lives, and working the pandemic without the vaccine before it even came out, and you're going to penalize them because they don't get a vaccine, but yet they just went to the meat of it without a vaccine, and all the healthcare workers that they chose that they wanted to work, then they should be allowed to work. Like the flu vaccine, you wear PPE, right? Well, we were wearing 2 masks. We were wearing, some people were wearing ventilators. Really? Like totally shielded, but yet the hospital didn't want the liability of possibly that nurse passing it on to the patient, which I understand, but your broken CDC guidelines is what caused the problem part of the problem in the first place. We're supposed to go from room to room, and what you want to put hospitals are putting COVID and non-COVID together. Are you serious? This is the stuff that was really happening for real.
If Anne-Marie McAllister is out there, please tune in, and Gina Dalen, because these ladies are basically saying exactly what you've been saying all along through the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So that's, and they're really good friends of mine. So that's why I call them out, because basically what you've been saying is what has been told to us. We've had friends that worked in the nursing here where I live, and we're being told one thing, like, okay, so we were told that they got refrigerated trucks to sit out there so that when the pandemic first hit, because they were going to be full of dead bodies. That's why it was there. Mm-hmm. And so we asked one of the nurses that worked there, and we said, how many bodies are in that? And absolutely none. But that's not what the public was told, to be, to be fearful. Or let's go rent every ice rink here in Windsor, because, that's where all the bodies are going to be held until they got enough time, because the funeral homes would have been backed up. This is the stuff we were told.
Well, in the beginning, there were stacks and stacks of bodies in those trucks in New York City and all the other states. There were. But when you heard about that, you knew that there might be some sort of a rise. But if the variant wasn't that severe, then you wouldn't have more casualties. But it's inexcusable how they would, while you're being processed and they don't know for sure if you have COVID, why are you in a room with COVID? Why? Mm-hmm. And then it's negative, but then you get COVID.
Right.
All too often There's these community loving hospitals really do take a toll. This is why I'm not invited to speak to these hospitals and their nursing staff. I have to go to actually unions in order to be able to talk, because of the fact that I'll call people out on their stuff. Because it's important, because nurses feel validated. They feel like they're being heard, and it's important to them, as well as also educated about the gaps.
Absolutely. So come on, Canada. Anybody that you know that Dr. Sandy could come and talk to, let us know. We'll connect you. Trust me, we'll connect you.
Thank you.
We just want what's best for our nursing staff, you know, and that's what we want. Like, no one should have to put up with that, with violence in the workplace at any given point. And that's what we're here for.
So I want to just, and I appreciate, and I just want to mention this. So violence looks and has different faces. Okay. It could be subtle. It could be violence where it's like you don't recognize it right away. It could be withholding supplies. It could be the fact that you're not allowing people to have breaks. It's all forms of violence. And I also want to throw something out there that domestic violence is the same thing as workplace violence, just looks a little different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or it could be in the form of your government dictating what you got to do too. That could be, I'm just saying, not that I would know what that's like.
Well, you love your job and you love what you do, and yet your job keeps abusing you and you keep coming back for more. And then it continues and the cycle just gets worse, right? Just like your lover. They abuse you, they look at you with a smile, and then they continuously, like, this goes from admin all the way down to where the patients will actually, it's more violence, physical violence from patients than it is from coworkers and from admin.
Mm-hmm.
Like nasty numbers, big numbers from admin and coworkers.
So I just had this visual in my head. So say, you know, that guy that had taken a bender, an all weekend bender,
Mm-hmm.
and now ends up in the hospital, who is violent, who has shrunk one of your nurses. There's no repercussion against that right now?
So the hospital would rather you not report them, and they tell you to do it on your own time. And if you do report them, then they're going to make it miserable for you, because that is a person that might fill out a survey. And if they fill out the survey, we have surveys in America where you don't get reimbursement if you get a negative survey. So you constantly always have to have a face like this in order to be able to take care of your patients. And then, so you go from one room that's sad because you just lost one of your patients, and you have to go into the other room with a big old smile, like you're bipolar. Nothing to say anything negative about my bipolar people, but just saying, it's like you feel like it's like you have this, you're constantly like this when you're working. And to get back to your statement about the drunk gentleman or drunk female or non-binary, because we're going to be politically correct.
That's right.
If they sit there and they hurt you, you have to file charges, period. Because violence should never be tolerated in healthcare at all whatsoever. And if you're told to not report, then you need to report the person that told you not to report, because there's a problem. There's a missing link. And that is the problem when it comes to the integrity of the unit. Like, what happens to the other patients? What happens when somebody witnesses, like if you witness me getting punched in the face, are you going to be traumatized from that? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when they tell the nurse not to do it, or the nursing staff or healthcare staff not to do it, basically, what are they hiding from? What are they hiding from? Like, I don't understand. I don't get that. What's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. Mm-hmm. And just so, and anyone that's listening out there, and I'm pretty sure this is like this in Canada, you're talking to a corrections nurse. Okay. I'm not just corrections. I could read telemetry strips like the pro next to me, which there's nobody next to me, but anyway, there's an infirmary in all of these jails. And what I mean by infirmary is that they can take care of them they get free basic health care. Free care for dental, eye care, all of that. You're not doing doing yourself a favor by allowing this person to stay if they're going to continuously, and then you transfer them up to a regular med surg floor, then they get hurt from the ER, you drug them down the ER, and they wake up upstairs and they're punching people out. Not okay.
Mm-hmm. Wow. As you're talking, I'm thinking of something else, because this would be workplace violence too. I remember back when my dad was actually working, getting a phone call, hurry up, bring me Band-Aids and gauze, whatever you got at home, bring me the first aid kit and get it to me now. So we lived across town, 20 minutes later, shows up. He is split all down. But because the union or the company had over, I don't know, 1 million hours accident free, no matter who got hurt, they all suck up for each other, hurry up and fix it at home, get through the rest of the shift, then go to the hospital. By then it's hours, it's too late. But because to keep that accident free hours, this shit happened. And it happened. I mean, he's gone now, and he hasn't worked there in over 15 years. And I won't say where it was. But this does happen, and that is workplace violence and unsafety measures. And yet your union, it's like, oh, if you report it, you're going to lose your job. Well, who cares? I would rather, make it right instead of covering up someone's dirty shit. And even back then, because I was living at home, I remembered that. And I'm like, well, what is that really teaching us? Like, what is that teaching your children when they saw this, right? And so for pretty much every job that I've ever had, I've stuck it up and sucked it up and went back out there, no matter how many times I've been rolled over. Now that I'm having this conversation with you, and there it is, because, you just like, I mean, he should have, I don't know why he didn't go, but anyways, well, I know why he didn't go, but seriously, to protect 1 million accident-free hours so that they could keep their status and get their freaking bonuses, like, give me a break.
So that is a prime example of learned helplessness. And it taught you not to say nothing. So what do you think what happens when these nurses are set for an example when they go out? Then they come back. If they go out for an injury, then the other nurses have to take on Mr. Smith that punched that nurse and broke her jaw. Right? Do you think they're going to be happy that they have another patient on their assignment?
Nope. And then they go against each other.
Yeah.
Well, if you would have just sucked it up, then this wouldn't have happened.
Over 30 years, now probably 40 years of material dating back to 4 decades. Nurses eating their young, right? Now it's a smorgasbord. Everybody's eating each other. It's corporate entity now. Like, nurses are now corporate, and it is very cutthroat and is very mean in most cases. And the nurses that stand with me don't like the bullying. They don't care for treating other people. We didn't go into nursing to treat people like garbage. We came into nursing to make change. We came into nursing to make a difference in not only our lives, but also others. And one nurse affects at least 1,000 other people. So can you imagine a nurse that is not okay mentally, taking care of thousands of patients? How do you think that's going to be? Right? We need to love on our nurses. We need to love on our nurses' aides. We need to remember that without any healthcare workers that are on the front line, including our EMS, including our firefighters, those are first responders. We treat them and we ignore the pain that they're going through is only going to create more people leaving the field. If we do not take care of these things right now, then it's going to continue and it's not going to end.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And no matter where you're working or what you're doing, no one should put up with this. No. But, we're just talking about nursing tonight, but, and I support that and what you say, because we need to do better by our nursing, because if we don't have any nurses, then what? We're kind of screwed. We need them. Right. And that's what we found here in my hometown, because, I mean, we're losing them. whether it be their choice not to be vaccinated or whether it be because they've had enough and they're leaving their fields. But we need to do better, and we need to get them the help that they need.
I think we also need to acknowledge the new nurses that are nursing staff that's coming up. We need to love on them even more because they're coming into this at the worst time. Mm-hmm. And they're trying. They're really trying. These students during COVID, they only learned scenarios. A lot of those nurses are gone because they have seen how they get eaten alive by nursing staff. There's no reality of what's happening in healthcare taught. So it's just a cycle. And I have to acknowledge the new nurses. I'm not going to call them baby nurses. I have to acknowledge them because if it wasn't for them taking that brave step to come into nursing, we wouldn't have staff. You know, we have some agency nursing still going on, but when it comes down to it, we really do need to love on our healthcare workers. And it takes the public. It's going to take the public to be able to discuss these issues that we're talking about today and to help us stand. Like the wounded soldier. The wounded soldier needs somebody to hold them up, to get them to safety. That's what nursing needs right now from the public. We need the public health. We need people to help us to get us through this, to call out the behavior you see. When you're in the hospital, call the behavior out. Nursing homes are worse. We can't lose any more staff in nursing homes. It's real bad. So we have to change. We have to stand up for those that can't speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, one of our nieces just became a nurse just before the pandemic, finished it just when the pandemic started. The poor girl, she was given a job right away, even without getting her full certificate. You have to go, you do the course, and then you got to wait a little bit, and then you got to do that, and then say, we'll give you a job. We know you're going for your thing. And she did it, and part-time, ended up working full-time hours. The girl is still going, so kudos to Kate. But it's just like, I can't imagine, being a brand new job coming into this and seeing what she saw in the last 3 years, in all this. I mean, it feels like a decade, but I don't know. Everybody's yelling. Has it been 2 years? Has it been 3 years? I don't know, but it's been a long time. It feels like a decade.
Yeah, it really does. And then all of a sudden now it's like I'm scheduling patients of my own in like November. I'm like, can this year slow down just a little bit? Like it's just going so fast because everybody's back full force, So it's just basically what we need to do is change the face of healthcare. And that is by recognizing everything that's happening and to, it's bad out there. So education is the key. And I know nurses are like, oh, she's talking about more in-services. No, but we can have fun. Matter of fact, I have the program that I did out in California. It was a 90, because there's always got to be one. There was a 99% vote for it to be a fun program. And I did it for 8 hours. So, and 97.8, I believe it was, said that it was very informative, because you always got to have that extra 1 or 2% people, but that's right. Okay. So.
Extra. I like those extra people.
Yeah. Those extra people. They're like, darn, I wish I thought of this.
I'm pretty extra myself. No. Not too many people can handle me, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And Kimberly keeps dropping off. So when she comes back up, we'll get her on here for the fundamentals. But she keeps dropping out of the green room for some reason. So, yeah. So is there, where is it that people can find out more about your program?
So they can email me, dr. Sandy with the Y at nursesagainstviolence.org. They can also contact me through Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It's like even LinkedIn, they can find me. Just reach out if it's something that you want to. It's really good to have large groups because it's very interactive and very engaging. I like to have a lot of people working together to be able to work out these scenarios and the issues that they're facing in their own atmosphere. So just want to make sure I have this on. Sorry. So they can get a hold of me through the website, also through any kind of social media.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your passion here. I'm going to now it's time for the fundamental section. So we will bring Miss Kimberly and Vicki back on. Welcome back, ladies.
Hi. So we look a little bit like Twinkies between our glasses and our hair. Silly. Oh, first of all, amazing. Just has to be said. Amazing show. So grateful for you and who you are. And just super excited to get up underneath you. I'm not sure, if you know this or not, but you're kind of stuck with us now. That's how it works on our show. We're absolutely committed to the people that are on our show, and as you know, the Holy Spirit guides the show, and no one left behind, right? So we're super excited to get behind you. And my best friend of 30 plus years, her daughter's a nurse, and there are many times during the show tonight that I found myself, even inside of hearing what I hear, right, from my best friend, I never related to what she's been dealing with until tonight. So I can't, from my heart to your heart to their hearts and all the hearts of all the nurses and all the first responders, that none of us really get a sense of what it's like. You really brought it home tonight in a way that I am just completely touched, moved, and inspired. I know Vicki is too. We're over here just hopping, going, how can we help? What can we do? Right. So, and we know this show's going to go out to countless others that are going to get to hear it as well. So just really thank you.
And thank you. I really appreciate you having me and having this discussion on your show. It means the world to me, because we have healthcare workers trying to make a difference and they can't. Yeah. And the pain that they feel alone, they feel abandoned, and even their husbands or wives, they don't understand what they're going through.
No, they don't. So again, thank you.
I wanted to also say thank you. Oh, and
wait, thank you.
And thank you. But really, the rest of the world is out here and thinking that, okay, COVID's done, right? We know there's still whatever there is around that. But for the healthcare workers, it never stops, whether COVID is here or not.
Yeah.
And nobody got a break. Nobody got a, like, oh, great, you did a really great time during these last 2 years, 3 years. Now we're going to give you a year off. That's not happening. And so I can imagine the level of exhaustion and upset and disappointment in not being able to be heard and oftentimes seen, not just because you're behind a mask, but because nobody's listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not having that experience of being heard. And so thank you so much, because everything you shared tonight is so important and significant in the lives of so many. And when we look at the numbers of suicides in the military, we were just having this conversation, how it's doubling, and we don't even know what those statistics look like for healthcare workers. And really, thank you for your generosity and your vulnerability this evening, and really sharing with us what's happening.
Thank you for having me, having us as nursing, and thank you.
Yeah. Well, and we get to thank Vicki, who is our sponsor tonight. And so, Vicki, what product and services would you like to share?
So, yeah, thank you.
yeah.
So it's really, there are no mistakes,
Uh-huh.
right? It's all by divine appointment. And what I do is who I am in the world and for humanity is that all people get to be seen, heard, and known for who they are, for where they are, for what they've accomplished, and everything that they've done. And so, what I know in the field that I work in, which is communication, I'm a relationship specialist and a communication specialist, and I work with a methodology called BANK, and it's a personality assessment coding in which, by cracking someone's code, you can actually identify how people are communicating with one another and where there are gaps in the communication and how to overcome them. And everything that you've been sharing tonight, the gap is huge, right? What I'm hearing is there is a grand valley that we get to start to bridge and truly, and and bridge the gap and bring people together in a conversation that is harmonic. And through BANK, I get to do that.
Yeah.
I get to meet with people and companies and help them to better communicate with each other, understand why people say yes to things and why people say no, and how they can actually listen inside of the other person's values, because it's all values based. And so it's really exciting. So thank you, Dr. Sandy. Thank you for Kimberly, for providing me with the opportunity tonight, and Dorothy, really for being the stand that you are inside of the Unstoppable Overcomers. And what I hear is that you truly are, Dr. Sandy, a unstoppable overcomer.
Yeah.
And keep on going. It's beautiful.
Vic, where can people get a hold of you to participate in your program?
Thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate that. You can go to my website, which is Vicki, VICKI, Parker, Unlimited.com, or you can actually crack your code. And for anyone who's listening to this show, I will provide you with a free report, personality assessment report, which will allow you to better understand what your triggers and tripwires are and to actually think about those. And you can use that with your family. And I'm happy to provide anyone with a consultation to talk about their report. So they can go to crackmycode.com/Vicki, VICKI.
Nice. That's very generous of you, Vicki. Well, thank you so much for doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All right. Who wants to go first? Who wants to share their fundamentals first?
Well, I'll go.
Yeah.
Because I just declared them.
Pregnant pause.
My fundamentals are being the space that people get to be seen, heard, and known. And it's so fun because when you are the clearing for that, it's unbelievable what gets uncovered and what gets created. It's really a space of fun.
Yeah.
Duh. And it's not all mental.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Your turn. Yes.
Oh, my goal is to hopefully inspire everybody with the education and knowledge to change the face of healthcare and end violence, because we can overcome so much once we are united and we all uplift each other. It is paramount that we all even your phone agreed.
It did. It did. Thank you. Thank you for bridging that technical difficulty in the moment. Oh,
So
those are beautiful. Those are really beautiful. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you both. You know, it never ceases to amaze me how fundamental people's fundamentals are and how inspiring they are. And we've yet to have anyone duplicate Dorothy. Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. We have one more sponsor for tonight's show. So
Oh,
Kimberly,
great. Yeah.
can you tell us more about our Kimbra rituals? Can you tell the world, because I don't think too many people know about what Kimbra rituals are. And they have an amazing deal going on right now.
Yes.
So can I just take 2 minutes, because I really want to honor my commitment to Kimberly tonight.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, what is she doing? Oh, I know what she's
yes,
doing.
I know. Yeah, I don't normally ever do this. But Kimberly is part of an amazing organization called Kimbra. And Kimbra is not your coaching program. It is like a ritual. And so if you need time, money, or people, this is the way to get it. And it is like $1 million operation. But Kimberly, so tell our viewing audience, because you know more about this than I do. Tell our viewing audience about
Yeah. Sure. Well, what's there for me in the time that we have responsibly, right, is to say in its simplest form. Wow, I'm getting like totally choked up here. You totally surprised me, girl. Way to go. Wait, it takes something. And way to
You're
go.
on the court.
Yeah. No, it's just no, I'm overwhelmed with love. And I'm overwhelmed with who the four of us are in this very moment, for the nurses, for the military, for the world, right? The hurting world. And who Kimbra is for that. Like I'm overwhelmed with, the company that we created in Kimbra. Its commitment is that each and every human is very clear that they are whole, perfect, and complete exactly how they are and exactly how they aren't. And don't get me wrong, we love coaches at Kimbra. We believe in coaches, but we are not coaches. And our commitment is that in the realm of it, anybody who's dealing with lack or scarcity, and especially aloneness, right? There's so many people out there right now, entrepreneurs, like this whole world we're inside of, right? Where even though we're together, we're alone, right? And so Kimber is committed that people never think that the key fundamental resources, I did say fundamental, by the way, of time, money, and people, right? Human resources, financial resources, and time resources are truly infinite. There's no lid on what's available to people. Unfortunately, they get caught up in practices and that would actually limit those resources. And so what Kimber provides is a space for you to be literally in a ritualistic communal environment. It's very, very intentional to open you back up to realize, oh, my resources are unlimited. All of them. There's no resources that I have a limit on. And so we provide that space for people, and we make it super, super simple for people. They can either attend those rituals live on a weekly basis, or they can watch the replays, or in a communal environment, or they can watch the recordings. So our commitment at Kimbra is that people get that they have everything they need within them now. And that all that there is to open up is their awareness of where they're standing in lack in their key fundamental resources available to them. How is that, Dorothy?
That's amazing. So the website, though, is thekimbra.com. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's me. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so get more information, go right there right now. And you want to sign up before tomorrow, because am I right?
Yeah, that is that. Well, actually, if they want to sign up, it's free. right? They can either attend tomorrow night, our 411, which is a monthly event, and it allows people to find out what are those key goals that they want to achieve with Velocity, and it gives them a structure for that. So they can sign up for that. That's always free. We always give that away every month because we want people to really realize what's available for them. But yes, you know what, Dorothy, because you made a spot on the show tonight, if they sign up between tonight and tomorrow night and the 411, they actually get to, what did I just do? Oh, it's my finger, sorry. They get to sign on for $30.99 a month. So $1 a day, and that will be a grandfathered price. It will never go up for anybody who's on for $30.99. And as of October, I think it's 5th, Wednesday morning, we go back to our pre-COVID prices. So our prices were originally $60.99, but when COVID hit, we wanted to make sure everybody had access to it. We dropped ourselves down for 2 years. And so we're standing in the victory for all of humanity. And we've also increased all of our services immensely. So we're putting our prices back to pre-COVID prices as of October 5th. So they can get in, because if they're coming in from the show, they can still get in on that offer.
And I'm actually a member of the Kimbra, of that community, and I absolutely love it. The Time Bender is my favorite, mostly because it's how interesting. The Time Bender is the one that I can always make. I have time for.
That's awesome, and I'm also a member as well.
People, if they can only go to one, Time Bender's the one, because if you open up your time, then that does open you up to the other one. So
right,
yeah.
There you go. So go to thekimbra.com, sign up for tomorrow's free class. You get 14 days to trial either way.
Yep.
So it's a win-win. But if you tell them that you saw it on this show, you get to keep your price for the $30.99, and then it goes up after October 5th. So get your in today. Go right now, sign up, thekimbra.com. So I just want to thank all our guests for showing up tonight and being part of this amazing episode. And Dr. Sandy, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your passion for our nurses. And thank you, Vicki, for joining us this evening. And any last words, Dr. Sandy, before we wrap this up?
Don't let anybody else's storm change the direction of your sail. Keep moving forward.
Oh, I love that one.
I'm so in love with you, Dr. Sandy.
I know.
I love that. Now I need a sailboat. With that.
But we already needed that. If Greg hears you say anything other than we need a sailboat, there'll be trouble.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Anyways, that's a whole other episode. Continue to watch us on this channel, guys, because as you know, this Friday is our 24-hour fundraiser for Unstoppable Camaraderie. 24 hours for Heroes, Badges, and Warriors. We're out to create a massive mission to bring PTSD to the forefront so that everybody is aware of what everybody's going through, get them the help that they need, and really fund these programs that are so needed to end veteran suicide, first responder suicide, nursing suicide. We got it all. You name it, we've got it. We're going to take care of it.
Right?
Yeah.
That's right. We're going to take care of it all. So stay tuned. This channel, Saturday or Friday night at 6 is when we start. So be unstoppable in all you do and continue to tune in because we've got a jam-packed week. Bye for now.